Historical Timeline by Peyton Gilbert. The following outlines the key laws and cases that led to the creation and maintenance of bilingual education programs from 1923 to 2001. Each case brought about change and reform so that English language learning students could have a better learning experience. The first case is Myers v. Nebraska in 1923. This started because a school teacher, Myers, who taught German in a Lutheran school, was caught allowing one of his students to read the Bible in German. He was charged for violating the Simon Act, but Meyer quickly appealed this. After another Supreme Court case, it was decided that the 1919 Nebraska law restricted foreign language education, violated the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, and declared the right of parents to control the upbringing of their child as they see fit. This case inspired action by many others to fight for ELL students' rights in the classroom. The next case is Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. In this case, the court ruled that American state laws establishing racial segregation in public schools are unconstitutional, even if the segregated schools are otherwise equal in quality. The court's unanimous 9-0 decision stated that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal, and therefore violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Brown v. Board of Education made a way for inclusion and integration in schools for ELL students. The National Defense Education Act of 1958 was passed in response to Soviet acceleration of the space race with the launch of the satellite Sputnik. The act funded fellowships and loans to students, and the legislation bolstered education in the areas of science, mathematics, and modern foreign languages. The NDEA authorized the appropriation of more than $1 billion over the next 7 years to achieve its goals, making it the first example of comprehensive federal education legislation and signaling the expansion of the role of the federal government in the education of all citizens. With bigger and better educational programs entering the United States, ELL students were able to reap some of the benefits as well. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlaws discrimination based on race, sex, color, religion, or national origin. It also prohibits racial segregation in schools, employment, and public accommodations. Over the years, the Civil Rights Act has strengthened its ability to guarantee all citizens equal protection of the laws under the 14th Amendment. The impact it has had on ELL education is undeniable. This act has been a solid base for many other areas of reform in bilingual education. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, which is also known as ESEA, provides federal funding to primary and secondary education, with funds authorized for professional development, instructional materials, resources to support educational programs, and parental involvement promotion. The Act emphasizes equal access to education, aiming to shorten the achievement gaps between students by providing federal funding to support schools with children from impoverished families. ESEA directly affects schooling for ELL students by providing them with access to better education and materials. But this act has also been influential in many other cases that aim to improve English language learners' overall school experience. Next is the Bilingual Education Act of 1968. This act signaled that the federal government now also recognized the need for and value of bilingual education programs in the United States public education system. Also known as the Title VII of the Elementary and Secondary Education Amendments of 1967, the Bilingual Education Act was passed on the heels of the Civil Rights Movement. It established federal policy for bilingual education for economically disadvantaged language minority students, allocates funds for innovative programs, and recognizes the unique educational disadvantages faced by non-English speaking students. The Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974 prohibits discrimination against faculty, staff, and students, including racial segregation of students, and requires school districts to take action to overcome barriers to students' equal participation. This act states that the failure of an educational agency to attain a balance on the basis of race, color, sex, or natural origin of students among its schools shall not contribute a denial of equal educational opportunities or equal protection of the laws. It is one of the number of laws affecting educational institutions the most. The next case is Lau v. Nichols, 1974. In 1971, the San Francisco, California school system was integrated. As a result, the San Francisco school system absorbed over 2,856 students of Chinese ancestry who were not proficient in English. Of these students, the school system only provided about 1,000 of them with supplemental English language courses. Classes were taught exclusively in English. Lau and other students of Chinese descent who did not speak English and received no supplemental English courses brought a action suit against the officials in the San Francisco Unified School District. The United States Supreme Court unanimously decided the lack of supplemental language instruction in public schools for students with limited English proficiency violated the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The ruling was that the failure to provide supplemental English language instruction to students who spoke no English constituted a violation of the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act because it deprived those students of an opportunity to participate fully in public education. Next is Castaneda v. Pickard, 1981. In this case, the father of two Mexican American students claimed that the school was discriminating against his children because of their ethnicity. He argued that the classroom his children were being taught in was segregated. They were using a grouping system for classrooms based on criteria that both ethnically and racially discriminated. The court ruled in favor of the Castanedas. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals formulated a set of basic standards to determine school district compliance with EEOA, otherwise known as Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974. The Castaneda test includes the following criteria. 1. Theory. The school must pursue a program based on an educational theory recognized as sound or, at least, as a legitimate experimental strategy. 2. Practice. The school must actually implement the program with instructional practices, resources, and personnel necessary to transfer theory to reality. 3. Results. The school must not persist in a program that has failed to produce results. The last case is No Child Left Behind in 2001. A U.S. Act of Congress that reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act It included Title I provisions applying to disadvantaged students. It supported standard-based education reform based on the premise that setting high standards and establishing measurable goals could improve individual outcomes in education. The Act required states to develop assessments in basic skills. To receive federal school funding, states had to give these assessments to all students at select grade levels.